Hey everyone, welcome back to Build/Break, the podcast where we dive deep into what makers are building right now. I'm Owen.
And I'm Hope. Before we get into today's episode, let me give you a taste of what we're exploring. We've got developers using AI to build entire programming languages in under 10 hours, daily puzzle games attracting thousands of players through algorithmic generation, and get this, someone turning discontinued Nest thermostats into open-source smart home devices. Plus, we'll look at how AI is fundamentally changing the relationship between senior developers and code.
It's a packed one. And Hope, I want to start with something that really caught my eye in the AI-assisted coding category, because I think it represents a genuine shift in how we think about software development.
The Vibe coding project?
Exactly. There's this developer who built a fully functional browser extension in just 45 minutes using AI assistance. And we're not talking about a toy project. This was solving a real production bug with OpenSearch and ZSTD encoding. They had to manipulate HTTP request headers, handle all the browser extension APIs, everything.
The 45-minute time frame is striking, but what really interests me is the argument they're making about disruption in the plugin marketplace. Because if someone can go from idea to working extension in under an hour, what does that mean for the economics of browser extensions?
Right. And then you have projects like Contextify, which is taking this meta approach. It's a macOS app that captures all your interactions with AI coding assistants like Claude, stores them in a local SQL database, and uses Apple's local LLM to provide real-time summaries. So it's using AI to help you work better with AI.
That's the feedback loop I keep seeing. But here's what I want to dig into. There's another project in this category where someone is writing about and potentially building a consulting business around how senior developers can leverage AI tools like Cursor more effectively than junior developers. What do you make of that thesis?
It's counterintuitive at first, right? You'd think AI would be the great equalizer. But the more I think about it, the more it makes sense. A senior developer knows what good architecture looks like. They can spot subtle bugs. They understand the implications of technical decisions. When AI generates code, they can evaluate it critically.
Whereas a junior developer might not know what questions to ask, or might not recognize when the AI is leading them down a problematic path. It's like the difference between using a calculator when you understand math versus just typing in numbers and hoping for the right answer.
And we're seeing this play out in extreme ways. There's a project called Spress where someone built an entire programming language using AI prompting, specifically the O4 Mini High model, in about 10 hours. They used a bytecode interpreter and recursive descent parser approach, building features iteratively.
10 hours to build a programming language. That's wild. But Owen, I want to push back a little here. Are we in danger of conflating building with assembling? Because there's a big difference between understanding compiler theory and using AI to generate the implementation.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And I think it depends on your goals. If you want to deeply understand how compilers work, AI might actually get in the way. But if you want to prototype a domain-specific language for a specific use case, maybe this democratizes something that was previously only accessible to compiler experts.
Which brings us to another theme I'm seeing across these projects: procedural generation. Let's talk about the puzzle games, because there's something fascinating happening there.
The daily puzzle space is absolutely exploding. We've got Clues by Sam, which is a logic puzzle game where the primary focus was developing an algorithm that generates puzzles solvable through pure logic, no guessing required.
That's actually a hard computer science problem, generating puzzles that are both solvable and interesting, with the right difficulty curve, without being trivial or requiring guesswork. It's constraint satisfaction with a human element.
And then you have Tiled Words, which grew to 2,000 daily players in its first month. What's interesting there is they're using community-submitted clues, so they're solving the content generation problem through crowdsourcing rather than algorithms.
Two different approaches to the same problem. How do you create fresh, engaging content every single day? One is algorithmic, one is community-driven, and we're seeing this pattern repeat. There's another developer who built regularly.co, a whole website of daily puzzle games, starting with one called Countable that they made for their wife.
The personal origin story is interesting. A lot of these projects start as something someone wants for themselves or their immediate circle, and then they realize others might want it too. There's a guy who built an ad-free website with over 50 solitaire and puzzle games, and he's on the fourth rewrite.
Fourth rewrite. That tells you something about the learning journey. But here's what I'm curious about. How do these projects monetize? Because we're seeing different models. Puzzle Ship has a subscription for archived puzzles. Most are completely free. There's this tension between building something delightful and building something sustainable.
It's the classic indie maker dilemma. And speaking of sustainability, let's shift to the more complex game development projects because there are some genuinely ambitious things happening here.
The multiplayer survival game with destructible voxel-based physics caught my eye. They're combining elements from Astroneer, Teardown, and Valheim with gravity mechanics and object connectivity systems.
That's a massive technical undertaking. Voxel physics alone is computationally expensive, and when you add multiplayer synchronization on top of that, you're dealing with some serious architectural challenges. How do you keep all clients in sync when the entire world is destructible?
And there's Astroloot, which is a bullet heaven game combined with sci-fi space ARPG elements. After 2 years of development, they've completed the main campaign and are working on endgame content. That's a significant commitment.
2 years is a long time to work on something before you really know if it'll resonate with players. There's Botnet of Ares, a hacking-themed roguelike built in Godot, and KeroPunk, a factory simulation game that's approaching crowdfunding stage.
The crowdfunding mention is interesting because it signals a shift from "I'm building this for fun" to "I'm building this as a potential business." That's a significant psychological and practical transition. You're no longer just making something cool. You're making something that needs to convince strangers to give you money.
Let's talk about the language learning category, because there's a cluster of really interesting approaches here. You've got phrasing, which supports over 120 languages and is designed for polyglots who want to maintain multiple languages simultaneously.
120 languages. That includes low-resource languages too. The developer is personally studying 18 languages, which explains the polyglot focus. But what's interesting is they're using sentence analysis, phrase alignment, grammar tagging, and audio generation. This is a comprehensive linguistic toolkit.
And then there's Fisher Loop, which is taking the interactive audiobook approach, text-to-speech with word-level highlighting to help with pronunciation and grammar. It's addressing a specific pain point, connecting written text to spoken language.
There's also Nuenki, which is a browser extension that translates sentences at the user's knowledge level into their target language. But get this, it uses a hybrid LLM translator that combines multiple models by having them critique each other's translations.
That's clever. Using disagreement between models as a signal for potential translation issues. It's like getting a second opinion automatically.
But there's a project here that's struggling with something important. Someone building a language learning app that combines AI-generated flashcards with spaced repetition. They brand it as Anki meets AI, and they're grappling with trust and quality assurance issues inherent in using LLMs for translation and exercise generation.
That's the elephant in the room with a lot of these AI-powered educational tools. How do you verify the AI isn't making subtle mistakes that could actually teach someone the wrong thing? With code, you can run tests. With language learning, the feedback loop is much longer and harder to measure.
Exactly, and that quality assurance challenge extends beyond language learning. Let's pivot to the developer tools, specifically the database and data querying space, because there's some genuinely innovative stuff here.
The SQL debugger that visualizes queries step by step really impressed me. It shows how each clause, condition, and expression processes data through the entire query lifecycle. It includes query lineage tracking, works offline without AI, and there's both a free browser version using PG Lite WASM and a paid desktop version.
That's solving a real pain point. SQL can be opaque, especially complex queries with multiple joins and subqueries. Being able to step through and see exactly what's happening at each stage, that's valuable for both learning and debugging.
And then you have Zen Query, which takes the opposite approach. It lets users query large data files using plain English instead of SQL. So one tool is helping you understand SQL better, and another is helping you avoid writing it altogether.
Two different philosophies about abstraction. Do we teach people the underlying system, or do we hide it behind a more natural interface? There's probably room for both. What about the event sourcing database that elevates the write-ahead log to a first-class application concept?
That one's interesting because it's challenging a fundamental architecture pattern. Right now, if you want event sourcing, you typically run PostgreSQL for your database and Kafka for your message queue. This project is saying, what if those were actually the same thing? The WAL becomes both your database transaction log and your event stream.
That could simplify a lot of infrastructure. But I'm curious about the operational implications. Combining two pieces of infrastructure means you've eliminated one failure mode, the synchronization between them. but you've also created a more complex single system. There are trade-offs.
Always trade-offs. And speaking of ambitious architectural projects, we should talk about the new programming languages being developed, because there's a surprising number of them.
I counted 6 projects building entirely new languages. Firefly, which is a typed full-stack language with object capabilities and implicit async await. Bao, which aims to be as fast as C or Rust, while being as simple as Python. AGL, which compiles to Go but adds TypeScript-like features.
And Mochi, which is specifically designed for querying and transforming structured data with LINQ-style declarative queries. Each of these is trying to solve a specific pain point with existing languages.
The question I always have with new programming languages is, what's the adoption path? Because the technical merits are only part of the equation. You need tooling, libraries, community documentation. That's years of work beyond just the language itself.
Which is why it's interesting to see Easel.games, which is a game engine that automatically handles multiplayer functionality by building it into the programming language itself. So they're not just saying, here's a better language. They're saying, here's a language designed specifically for this use case.
Domain-specific languages make more sense to me in that regard. You're not competing with general-purpose languages. You're solving a very specific problem better than the general-purpose solution. Like, if you want to build multiplayer games, maybe you don't need Python's flexibility. You need deterministic execution and automatic synchronization.
Let's shift to something completely different. Personal media libraries. There's a whole category of people building tools to manage their ebooks, movies, music, videos.
Colibri is interesting. It's a self-hostable web app for managing ebook libraries, designed as a companion to Calibre with features for sharing, reviews, and Goodreads integration. And someone built an alternative to Plex and Jellyfin for their movie collection, with plans to integrate RAG for natural language movie recommendations.
Wait, RAG for movie recommendations. So you could ask, show me movies similar to Blade Runner but more optimistic, and it would actually understand the nuance.
That's the idea. And there's someone building a desktop app that automatically indexes video libraries by extracting frames, transcribing audio with Whisper, and using LLMs to generate detailed metadata, summaries, tags, and searchable relationships.
That's solving the metadata problem in a fundamentally different way. Instead of relying on community databases like IMDb or TMDB, you're using AI to analyze the actual content and generate metadata automatically.
Which brings us back to that quality assurance question. Is the AI-generated metadata accurate? How do you verify it? But for a personal library, maybe it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be useful enough to find what you're looking for.
True. And there's a music recommendation system for self-hosted libraries that uses audio characteristics rather than metadata or popularity. It's like a personal Pandora, but for your own collection.
I love that concept because it solves the I know I have something that sounds like this, but I can't remember what it's called problem. You're searching by vibe, essentially.
Speaking of vibe, we should talk about the personal life transition projects because there's something poignant about them.
There's a programmer of 25 years who's career switching to become a violin maker. They're planning to attend the Violin Making School of America and building their first violin from scratch as preparation.
That's a profound shift. From digital to physical, from automated to artisanal. And there's someone taking a sabbatical from freelance development to focus on self-directed learning and personal projects.
And someone working up the courage to quit their stable job for a working holiday in Australia. These aren't technical projects, but they're projects in a deeper sense. They're people engineering their own lives, making intentional changes.
It reminds you that behind all these technical projects are humans trying to figure out how to spend their finite time on Earth doing things that matter to them.
Heavy but true. Okay, let's get back to something more concrete. Location-based games are having a moment.
There's an IP geolocation guessing game, multiple birdwatching games that combine Pokemon Go mechanics with real photography, local geo-guesser for testing knowledge of your own area, and even a real-life treasure hunt in the Blue Ridge Mountains with over $31,000 in gold coins.
The treasure hunt is wild. It has a shrinking search area, a live webcam, and premium upgrades that contribute to Hurricane Helene relief. So it's part game, part fundraiser.
The birdwatching games interest me because they're gamifying something that people already do. You're not asking people to do something artificial, you're adding game mechanics to an existing hobby.
Which probably makes it more sustainable. If people are already birdwatching, the game just enhances that experience rather than requiring them to develop an entirely new habit.
Let's talk about the investment research and market intelligence tools, because there's an interesting cluster here about helping people make sense of financial markets.
There's an AI-powered prediction app that searches the web for information about assets and uses Gemini to generate price projections. Ticker Feed, which is a forum for stock market discussion built as an alternative to degraded Reddit communities. Asset Room, which sends email summaries of SEC filings.
And someone analyzing how dark pool trading and automated trading algorithms are evolving and affecting market behavior, including how the market adapts to exploit AI-based trading strategies.
That last one is fascinating from a game theory perspective. As more people use AI for trading, the market itself is adapting to exploit patterns in AI trading behavior. It's an adversarial co-evolution.
There's also gtmintle.com, which tracks venture capital funding rounds and uses AI to infer what services newly funded companies might need to outsource. It's B2B intelligence with an aviation aesthetic built in Rust.
The aviation aesthetic detail is interesting. People are thinking about the experience and personality of their tools, not just the functionality. But I want to circle back to something: browser automation and web scraping, because there are some projects here that are pushing boundaries.
Someone is creating a Chrome extension that replicates the Puppeteer and Playwright API, using native Chrome extension APIs instead of Chrome DevTools protocol. They're aiming for about 85% of the functionality with better performance and security.
And there's a commercial service providing programmatic access to Reddit's private mobile API endpoints for data extraction, OSINT, market research, competitor analysis, tracking product mentions at scale.
That one's interesting from a business model perspective. Reddit has been aggressively closing off API access, so there's clearly demand for alternative ways to access that data.
There's also Pure.md, which converts any web content into clean markdown by prefixing URLs. It's designed to help LLMs and APIs access web content while avoiding bot detection.
These projects exist in a gray area between legitimate use cases and potential terms of service violations. It's the eternal tension between what's technically possible and what platforms want to allow.
Let's talk about the repurposed hardware projects, because I find these delightful. Someone hacked an old Kindle to use as an e-ink dashboard for their daughter's school routine, showing bus times and other information.
And someone else created a wall-mounted display using 12 jailbroken Kindles in a 3x4 grid, powered by battery packs. But the really impressive one is the open-source replacement PCB for discontinued Nest thermostats.
That's a proper right-to-repair project. Google is discontinuing support for second-generation Nest thermostats in October 2025. So someone designed a PCB that preserves the original hardware, the display, encoder ring, enclosure, but replaces the control electronics with an ESP32-based board compatible with Home Assistant.
That's not just hacking, that's reverse engineering, PCB design, firmware development, integration with Home Assistant. It's a complete product.
And it's a middle finger to planned obsolescence. The hardware is perfectly fine. It's just the software support being withdrawn. This project says, fine, we'll maintain it ourselves.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on a few more quick ones. There are 4 different free open-source invoice generators that all basically solve the same problem: creating professional invoices without forced subscriptions or sign-ups.
The fact that there are 4 of them tells you something about the demand. Freelancers and small businesses need this functionality, and they're tired of being forced into monthly subscriptions for something they use occasionally.
Computer vision projects, using photos to create 3D models of trees and determine optimal cutting sequences, estimating sunflower plant density from imagery, AI-powered sports refereeing.
And information extraction projects, building knowledge graphs from unstructured text, large-scale text classification with LLMs, analyzing CVs to assess AI career risk.
That last one is both useful and existentially terrifying. Upload your resume and find out how likely AI is to replace you.
The meta-irony of using AI to tell you if AI will replace you is not lost on me. Okay, we're running long, but I want to hit a few more. Code visualization tools, game engines, infrastructure deployment.
There's an infinite canvas visualization tool for code bases that lets you zoom between detailed code and high-level architecture. There are 3 separate projects building voxel game engines with GPU acceleration and hot reloadable shaders.
And infrastructure tools like uncloud for Docker clustering without Kubernetes complexity, managed Kubernetes hosting at fixed pricing, and tools that generate live diagrams from infrastructure as code files.
So what are the big themes here, Hope? What patterns are you seeing across all these projects?
AI is everywhere, but But it's not replacing humans. It's amplifying what they can do. The senior developer who understands architecture can use AI to implement faster. The puzzle creator who understands game design can use algorithms to generate content. The right tool requires domain expertise to use effectively.
I'm seeing a lot of people building tools for themselves first, then realizing others might want them. The personal media libraries, the language learning apps, the invoice generators. These start as scratching your own itch.
And there's a tension between building something delightful and building something sustainable. A lot of these projects are free, open source, which is great for users but doesn't necessarily create a viable business.
Though some are figuring out creative monetization, subscriptions for archived content, premium features, consulting services built around the core tool.
The hardware repurposing projects give me hope, pun intended. People are refusing to let perfectly good hardware become e-waste just because companies withdraw support. That's agency.
And the personal life transition projects remind us that not every project is about building a product. Sometimes the project is building the life you want to live.
That's a good place to leave it. If you want to see the full list of projects we discussed, check out the show notes.
And if you're building something interesting, we'd love to hear about it. Reach out on social media or through our website.
Until next time, keep building.
Keep breaking.